Hi there, my name is Aaron Short and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today is Monday, March the 14th. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. It means a lot to me. So first of all, quick announcement. Actually, I woke up this morning to the news of 11,000 subscribers. So thanks again for subscribing and watching my videos. I really, really do appreciate it. And today is going to be excellent because we have Martin Guitar here, who are one of my favorite brands, as you know. And we have the new chairman and CEO, Thomas Ripsam. So if you have a question, please do put it in the chat. I have some questions I've prepared already. And if you post your question with a Q next to it in the chat and it's appropriate, I'll bring it on the screen. If you want to send a super chat to support the channel, I'll also prioritize those questions. Okay. So without further ado, please welcome today, Thomas Ripsam. How you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing well. Hey, Aaron.
I want to say thank you so much for your time and for joining me. I can see you're at work today, so thanks for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And just quick clarification, I'm not chairman yet. No, I'm
Oh,
the
good to know.
president and CEO. Chris is still the executive chairman of
Oh,
the board.
my mistake. I meant chairman. So apologies to Chris and everyone.
No
Yeah.
problem.
When I have a guest on, I try to get their title just right. So that was my slip up. Yes. So how are you doing today? It's great to see you.
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. I'm just having a great day today with having you here. It's fantastic. I'd like to get started for people that don't know you. So you're originally from Germany.
Correct.
Tell us about growing up. Like, was music a part of your life growing up? Were your family a musical family?
Yeah, so I grew up in the south of Germany, between Stuttgart and Munich, in that area, in a small city called Ulm. My family, music played a really important role throughout my childhood in my family. They were not musicians, but we listened a lot to music. Dance was really important in our family as well. And somehow from early on in my childhood, guitars became kind of the most important instrument when I listened to music. Somehow I resonated with guitars the most, and it stuck with me through the rest of my life.
That's really, really great. And of course, Germany is essentially where Martin started, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah. So Martin started in the east of Germany,
Mm.
Markneuenkirchen. So a little bit away from where I grew up. Dialects are different. So that's
Mm.
Saxon. I'm a Swabian. So you would actually see some difference or hear some difference in how we speak. But yes, exactly. Both from Germany, both families.
That's really, really cool. And I read online that you spent some time in England. I want to ask you about that because I'm originally from England. I live in the USA now. But how was your time in England? How did you like it?
It was fantastic. So I did my college partly in Germany, partly in the UK, in London specifically. So I spent 2 years in London during college. It was an amazing learning experience. It was my first time really outside of Germany, and probably the first time I realized how German I actually am. Um, but yeah, I think experiencing London as a student, there's just so much the city had to offer. And I studied together with students from England, of course, Spain, France, and Germany. So it was an international program. So lots to do and experience different cultures in a city like London. That was awesome.
Mm. I really enjoyed my time there. It really is a great place to be, especially for music, right? It's a fantastic place.
Totally.
And guitar stores too, with Denmark Street there and everything. I've got a fun question for you. What was your favorite British food, if you have one? If not, it's fine. But do you have like a staple British food that you like?
Well, yes, it was probably fish and chips.
The
I
fish and
actually
chip.
got to to love fish and chips. It was also inexpensive enough as a student and affordable.
Mm,
So yes, I got to love that, and for sure the British beer as well. I didn't
British
say no
beer.
to that either.
Yeah, British beer with
Yes,
fish and chips, right? The
with
ultimate
fish and chips.
combination.
Yes, yes, in a good old pub.
um, so something I've been thinking about a lot since I heard about this news with you starting there. Martin, the reason that I and many love Martin is the family business. It's all the successes have been in the family. It's within the family. Chris has been there for so long. He's such a visual part of the company. I know he's still there, but he's been such a big thing about it. And then you're coming along. How was the transition? As much as you can tell us, I obviously don't say anything that you can't, but I'm really interested to know how that worked, and as much detail as you can give us, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the transition is still going on, and I think it's going to be a journey. Um, Chris and the family, they are still the primary shareholder of the company, first of all, and Chris as an owner and somebody who essentially spent his entire life at Martin, or most of his life running and leading the business. Um, he is always going to be closely involved. Um, in terms of the transition, so Chris is now the executive chairman of the board, um, and that's the formal role that he has. But part of the initial piece of the transition was for me to actually learn about the organization, learn about the culture, um, and get immersed in what Martin is like from the inside. Getting to know my coworkers and the teams, and spending a lot of time with Chris and the board to figure out, how do we split roles but also work together. What are some of the areas where Chris wants to be more involved? What are some of the areas where I may have more degrees of freedom? So it's a partnership, and so as you can also imagine, I mean, we're now 9 months into this, um, and we're still figuring it out as we
Mm,
go, right, in certain areas, and I think that's great. I mean, I was so excited to work with somebody like Chris, who obviously has such an experience and is such an institution in
mm.
the world of musical instruments, and it was always clear to me that the relationship with Chris will be super critical to making this work, right? And so we are in the midst of it, but so far so good. It's been going really well.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good information. It's good information, and it makes a lot of sense to have that gradual transition rather than Chris just saying, "Here you go, Thomas. You can start tomorrow." Right? That wouldn't
Yes.
work, would it? You need that gradual. And the way you said you're kind of still figuring out how to do it as you go along, and kind of figure out as you go. It makes a lot of sense. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
it's
the other thing, just also
mm,
to mention, I think it's pretty important. When I joined, the company was really in great shape, and as we all know, we are experiencing an amazing demand still in this industry for acoustic guitars. So I wasn't brought in with a change agenda, so to speak, right, to
mm,
to turn the business around or transform the business. Um, so
mm,
so there was an amazing foundation for me to join.
mm,
Having said that, we are in the process now to figure out the next chapter. That's what I'm
mm.
very excited about. What is that next chapter for Martin in the long history? What is it going to look like? Because the world is changing, and so I'm very excited about kind of having a great foundation, but also having to figure out a few things that are impacting our business.
That is actually really really interesting. Yeah, and any thoughts on how you might do that? Look inside your mind. I mean, you come obviously from a very business background, and you've studied.
Yes.
So can you just give us feel like myself that I don't know nothing about those things. If I was there, I'd just be asking people to work on things that I like, which obviously wouldn't work in business, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can you give us a look into your thought process on how you do those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, since we're not selling widgets, not to be disrespectful to companies that sell widgets, but
Mm,
we are ultimately about products that provide meaning, joy, inspiration for people. I think number one, and that's where my background also is. I've had a lifelong passion for guitars and for music, for the whole process of creating music and so the process from the idea to recording, mixing, mastering. And I think that passion is something that is super important to keep in mind front and center. Secondly, I always think it's really important to figure out what is so special about you, right? I mean, it's easy to say Martin is an iconic brand and has been around for long, and we all love Martin. But what is it that we really love Martin for? And how do we make sure that that connects to people in the world, right?
Mm.
That is so. But first of all, inside out. I call it inside out. Look into yourself and really think about what is it that we're doing better than anybody else beyond manufacturing, maybe. And then the other part is, and that's also sometimes not so easy. It's to actually make sense of what's going on around you, right? And figuring out what's relevant for you, and for sure some of the big trends that are going on in our industry. Consumers, they have a different idea about how to engage with brands and the experience they're looking for. Technology is a big factor. Uh, there's certainly not a shortage of instrument manufacturers that make exceptional instruments and very good
Mm.
instruments. So um, so understanding what's going on in the world, and then figuring out how do we navigate through some of the trends, but also maintaining what we over many years created that is truly special, and that's a process.
Totally. And the thing about acoustic guitars is it's very different to electric because the electric industry, I mean, every week there's a new pedal, a new way to amplify your electric guitar, and there's so
Yes.
many gadgets involved. But the acoustic community, there's a lot of traditional people. Like I love the real modern stuff too. I'm into gear, as you know, but
Hmm.
like the Martin, I love the old stuff. When I was at the museum and when I was at NAMM and went to Carter Vintage, I love playing the old guitars, and you've got a big percentage of users that love the history, the old iconic stuff, and then maybe people starting guitar today want more of the modern. I mean, SC13E is a great example,
Right.
right? More of a
Yeah.
modern guitar. So it feels like a very different kind of challenge to the electric market. This leads into a question I had for later on, but I'll bring it forward. And by the way, I'm reading the questions in the chat. We've got some kind of silly questions like, when will my custom shop be ready? I don't think Thomas can tell. As much as we'd like to tell you, I don't think we could find. But
Talk to our sales guy.
I know, it's like they want you to walk into the shop and ask them. No, they're just having fun. But there's some really good questions in there as well. So I'll finish my questions and I'll bring some of those into the conversation. But
Excellent.
moving that question forward up to now, as we're on this topic, what do you think is next? Because I remember when Chris Martin was on here, he mentioned about like electronics, like pickups. But then, of course, with the lockdown, a lot of people, like lately, I've been playing through a microphone at home. There's nothing like the sound of a acoustic. Like I played this one yesterday on the stream, acoustic guitar through a nice microphone, right? It's such a great thing. But now, as
Yeah.
the world opens up again, I'm sure pickups will become a thing. But what do you think is the next step, the next evolution of the acoustic guitar to take it into the future, in your opinion?
Yep. Yep. Um, well, I think one um, trend or dynamic or opportunity that we certainly see is how do you personalize the experience with your current consumers, the current Martin lovers, the people that have maybe just picked up a guitar. How do you connect best with those people? And then, frankly, there are a lot of people out there that may not play guitar at all today, that could also become future consumers. So I think what's next, first of all, is to better understand uh, kind of the consumers that are out there, latent or current, and and find ways to connect better, whether that's through instruments that speak more to specific consumer segments, whether it's through thinking about, okay, I just bought a guitar. What's next for me as a player? based on what I'm actually playing or what I'm interested in. What other things can we do for somebody like that is an opportunity. What's next? A whole other dimension to the what's next question certainly is how do we deal with the exceedingly uh, harder availability of exotic woods, right? And how do we think about materials and topics like sustainability? And somebody could say, well, that's so far out, but in reality, depending on the type of material we are thinking about, it's actually right here. That's clearly what's next as for us as well. And then I would also say, back to the, how do we best connect with consumers? Consumers, they now have different ways how they would like to connect, right? Whether it's through the traditional retail channels, whether it's maybe more directly with a manufacturer like Martin, or whether it's through influencers and other channels. So I think the playing field has broadened quite a bit,
Mm.
and that's a fact, right? And so the more we at Martin can find ways to take advantage of that, but also get closer to the consumer. To me, that's a big what's next question.
Yeah, I guess as a gear fan, a few years ago, I was looking forward to going to NAMM, like, what's the next release? What's the next release? What's next? What's next? But now,
Yeah.
I guess your focus as a company is more about getting parts, supply chain. Would you say that the emphasis on the future products is a bit less at the moment? You're more focused on making the current products, or are you still doing R&D as much as before as well?
Oh, I think we're doing R&D as
Oh,
much, if
okay.
not more, than
Oh, wow.
before. Obviously, this year the focus is absolutely also on being able to deliver
Mm,
the products that we have. Um, dealing with supply chain and shortages, all that, right? So that's clearly a very immediate and current focus. Um, but when it comes to product, it's also, I think what's next is how do we capitalize on successes like the SC platform, which and SC you mentioned SC13E, which is one product. But this year, as you may have seen, our new product launches, we are broadening that platform,
mm,
right, to again make different instruments more available to certain segments. If I think about the authentic line that we introduced, I mean, I'm a big lover of that
me
as
too.
well, because I actually do, I really do love Martin's history, and I think many people do. And how do we make more of that available in the right way, right? Maybe through more authentic products, through things like the Modern Deluxe, which I think is a good combination of the heritage, the history, but also refreshing that. So I think there are lots of ways to actually innovate on the instruments that we have. Maybe not revolutionary innovation, but tailored innovation to either make the instruments better or make them more fit for purpose for specific desires or needs.
Mm. Yeah, I love when companies do exactly that. They keep making the legacy instruments, like the authentics, like great recreations of the old guitars, but also have a line of innovation as well. Because you
Yes.
see, I didn't see it with the SC13, but I've seen it with other companies, for example, Fender and the Acoustasonic, very polarizing with a lot of players. But then again,
Hmm.
that's also more of an electric focused brand. So a lot of those people were not interested in that in the first place because they're more electric players. Acoustasonic is a bit more on the acoustic side. But
Yes.
I love that most companies seem to be doing that now. They're making really great recreations of the original instruments as much as they can with the woods available. And they're also innovating and releasing new products like the SC13E is a very different approach for Martin, right? But you can
That's
still buy an authentic
correct.
and you can still buy a standard series. So you're actually catering for everybody in a way.
Yes, and I think for people, and there are many people out there that play guitars that have multiple types of guitars for different situations or um, states they're in, right, or things they want to do. And so I think it just shows there's so much that can be done if you understand how different players that are at different levels, or if you're live performing or at home. I mean, there's so many variables in this, that polarizing is actually not a bad thing per se, because I think reality is,
Mm.
there's no one single type of player out there. So different instruments that do different things for different people, I think is great.
I just thought of a good question. What is your favorite? If you could choose one, what would your favorite Martin model be? If you could just have
Oh,
one, any one, just one.
yes, yeah, yeah. I think it's that's a hard question
I
because
know,
I
I know.
I
I
like
I hate
I
when
like
people
a
ask
lot.
me that. I'm sorry. I
Yes.
apologize.
So I think my answer would be, for me, Martin is about the personal connection that you develop with your instruments.
Mm,
And my personal choice is probably my MC68,
mm,
that I bought. It has been with me the longest,
mm,
and it has been with our family. There's so many memories and experiences tied to that. It's probably the most emotional, where I'm most emotionally involved. Um, so that's probably the guitar I would pick. Very subjective.
I apologize. It's like when I'm at a show and someone shouts out, "Play your best song." Like, I can't do it. What? And in fact, I've been asked that question a few months ago as well. If you could choose one Martin, what would it be? And I really stumble on it. Or one guitar would it
Yes.
be? I really stumble because I'm like, well, that's a really hard question. I kind of have stock answers, but yeah, it can change day to day
Yes.
as well, can't it? But great
Yeah,
answer.
and
Thank you.
it's also always funny when, so I have 4 children,
Ah.
and married for a long
Mm,
time, and my family knows about my collecting passion for guitars, and somehow they are still surprised when I find the next one that I want to get for my collection. But I think part of our passion is, that there are so many great instruments out there,
mm.
and that's why it's really hard when you're pushed towards one instrument, right?
Yeah. No, I know, I know. That's yeah. Again, I apologize. So another question. I got one more question for you, and I'll bring them in from the chat. I speak to a lot of people in the industry, and they say that the guitars they're not in stock. It's hard to keep up with demand, and that's been for the last couple of years. But I don't like to say this because I'm a guitar fan. I have a YouTube channel about guitars, but I find it a little bit hard to believe. Like, is there still a demand now than there was like 12 months ago? And who are these customers? Who is um, buying all these guitars? And can you give me some insight into that? Because I mean, I think it's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. I want this to happen, but I still am just really trying to get my head around the fact that that's the way things are going right now. Have you got any kind of inside info on that?
Yeah. I wish I had some insight on it, but but what I would say is, I think the most people that have been in the industry, and people, when I joined, a lot of people told me, Thomas, this industry is cyclical, and we've seen it, right, and it's going to happen again. Um, so that's one input, but the other one is also that I think this dynamic that was triggered by COVID, where demand just seems to go up and up and up, um, way beyond what may be typical, has also surprised a lot of people. So I think the reality is, right now, nobody knows how long this will last. Um, I it was interesting. George Gruen sent me an article. It was a Wall Street Journal article, and it was about the observation that it seems like certain categories, like art, music, musical instruments, um, uh, you know, seem to have growing consumer bases, right? And irrespective of COVID, and that is just because there is more and more money out there for different generations. of people that can spend money, and they love to spend money on guitars, art, maybe automobiles and other stuff. So I think it's probably a little bit of confluence of various variables, just the wealth that's out there. And when we talk about globally, I mean, there is a lot of wealth and money available, and people that are willing to spend it at different age groups. But nevertheless, we are watching the demand very, very closely, because things can change very quickly. Right now, it's still looking very good for this year. We still have a significant backlog for next year already. But we are all over the numbers, and looking for signs that anything may change at some point, right? And I don't think it's going to go on forever.
I've noticed with several brands this year, there's been more affordable releases, like the Silver Sky SE, and of course there's the SC10E as well now, right? So there's those. But you've also released like the Brook. Oh, sorry, I forgot her last name.
Ligerwood, yeah.
Ligerwood, yeah. You've released those instruments too.
Worship, yeah.
So I guess like you said, you're constantly monitoring the situation and trying to figure out the next step. It must be a lot of work, like, to know what to. I mean, we got NAMM coming up in June. Like, what do we release there, and what's the current state of the industry? And it must be tough to keep monitoring that all the time and know what to do.
Lots of discussion about these topics. I mean, the one thing that we also set for this year, reflecting on last year, where we were essentially in catch-up mode throughout the whole year, trying to ramp up production, never able to satisfy all the demand, because it was just so much more demand out there than what we could have done. But because of the continuous ramp up during the year, it frankly put a lot of stress on the organization. And one thing that we said for this year is we're not just going to chase volume and growth for the sake of volume and growth. So right. we're gonna be very thoughtful about what we can deliver, and what's our core. And so that's kind of how we approach this year, and maybe a little bit less aggressive than some of our competitors about ramping up, but maybe in a position to sustain it further out, right? And not having to rapidly adjust if the demand turns the other way.
Of course, and you have to maintain the quality and your reputation. And
absolutely.
I always think to myself, if you could suddenly expand, you could make another factory and hire loads more people, but then what if the demand goes down again? So that's a constant thing that you're struggling with. All right, so we have some great questions in the chat. Before I bring them on, just something fun. We notice on this channel, Thomas, that the Martin guitars have a wonderful aroma from the sound hole. So I did create this mug. This is the sound. I'm just getting focus here. Sound hole sniffer mug. I'll send you one time to the factory.
Wonderful.
Sound hole sniffer. So, have you ever sniffed the sound hole of your Martin guitars?
Oh, I constantly sniff.
Oh, okay.
I love, I love the smells. And one of the things, this is one of the pleasures that I had joining Martin Guitar. I walked through the factory pretty much every day, and I love the sounds, the smells. They change, depending on where you are. And then just to touch the materials and then the feel. So I actually love the immersive experience, and take full advantage of it.
What a silly question. Do you like to smell the guitars? Well, I guess you had that smell 24/7, right? You're always around that smell. At least most of the day you're around that smell anyway. Right. So you're in the best position with that in that regard. All right. So a quick comment from Roeth, a good friend of the channel. Says, hi, Aaron, Thomas, and everyone in the chat. Congrats to Thomas on becoming CEO of such an incredible company. I agree.
You.
My 0018V is my prized possession, and I can't imagine the guitar getting any better. So thank you, Roeth. That's a really nice comment. And then our first question came from Olds. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about this right now. There's a CEO model guitar. In fact, I remember when the announcement was made, this is one of the first questions that someone said to me, like, oh, will he have a CEO model? So this is indeed a question. without giving away any secrets about future products, have you been thinking about specs for a CEO 10?
Cool. So, so the answer is that the CEO model has actually been quite successful
Mm.
for the company, and so I think we're going to continue with that. To the specific question, we have not specced out the next CEO model, but I think that's in our pipeline to do that in the near future.
Thank you. And Jim says, Thomas, how many guitars were manufactured in 2021? Let me add to that though. My question on that as well is: was 2021 the year of the most guitars made and sold? I know some other brands mentioned that. Was that the biggest year for the company?
That was the biggest year for the company,
Mm.
and we produced about 150,000
Ah,
across our 2 locations, right, Nazareth and
wow,
Navarre.
wow, wow,
It's a
that's
lot of
crazy.
guitars.
I know, I
Yes.
can't get my head around it. And then actually, I got a follow-on question from that. And this will help my question from earlier, will 2022 be bigger in those numbers than 21, the same or less in your estimation?
So we certainly hope it will be bigger.
Mm.
That's what we are planning with.
Wow.
Probably not as big of a jump as we experienced in 2021, but still growth, right? So we are absolutely planning with growth for 2022. So the answer is hopefully yes.
Yeah, that'd be incredible. Really, really incredible. Wow. Stay tuned, people. Stay tuned. Um, Rowan, so we touched on this earlier. How do you balance the Martin tradition, again, being such a traditional company, versus innovation, and how much of that is influenced by present consumer preferences? Well, I guess that we kind of tie that in together, right, with the current state of the industry and balancing those things, right?
Yeah, I think with a brand like Martin, the balance is really important. As it comes to how is it influenced by present consumer preferences, the one thing that we certainly learned at Martin is we are probably over indexed on certain consumer categories that are not always reflective of what's out in the world. So I think our approach to balancing the tradition and the innovation, but also the thinking about the types of products we're going to add into the line is probably also influenced by different types of consumers, right? And there's a lot of opportunity we see to probably expand between our traditional base, um, because there's a lot of demand that we see beyond that traditional base. It doesn't mean that we're gonna make wholesale changes, as I mentioned, to the portfolio, or move away from certain consumers, but there's just a lot out there that we have opportunity to tap into more.
Awesome. Um, a few viewers have mentioned with some different. We've had Skip Belts here and a few other
Hmm.
people from Martin, and this has come up a few times from our friends in the UK. Actually, Lee says, "Serious question: can you make Martin merchandise more available in the UK and Europe? Because I believe they were saying that the members club is currently not open in England. Is that still true?"
That is still true as
Mm.
it relates to online sales of merchandise. So that is true. We're currently looking into that. I can't make any promises that it's going to change rapidly, but it's definitely something we're looking into, because the merchandising part is a big part
Mm.
for our consumers, as well as strings is also a big part, right? So we are definitely looking into different parts of the world, and how do we make this most accessible, which is not
Yeah.
a very specific answer to address the question, but all I can say at this point is it's certainly on our radar screen to address.
And I can see that comes from a good place. I can see people in the UK that are on the channel. They want to be in the members club. They want to buy the merchandise, and I think they're just
Mhm.
frustrated that they can't. Because, like you said earlier, the family and experience is part of the brand, right? Like, I'm in the members club. I have the T-shirt. I have the calendar. I'm in the community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and the beauty of the members club is that we actually have have direct access and information, right? Whereas if
Yes.
we sell through our traditional channels, we don't necessarily have all the specific individual information about the consumer. So it is something that we, first of all, we appreciate all the members in the club, and we also think there's a lot more that we can do together, and that's certainly something we want to do.
Okay, watch this space, people. And I don't know if you can see the comments, Thomas, but if you look
I
at
can.
Lee,
Yep.
I just want to point out he is wearing a Soundhole Sniffer t-shirt and sniffing. He's actually sniffing. I hope that's a Martin you're sniffing there, Lee, but he looks like he's sniffing his Martin. So, Lee, thank you for being in my very small club of Soundhole Sniffers, and those shirts are available at a link in the description. All right, now, BMO had a question which ties in with actually another question I had, which I missed. I wanted to ask you, Thomas, what's the most rewarding part of your job, and what's the biggest challenge of your job? And then BMO said, what's the number one issue or problem at Martin these days? So again, I guess we could say the biggest challenge for the company. But you personally, Thomas, like what do you find the most rewarding thing and the most challenging thing about your role?
As a Martin lover, I probably would say just to be part of this organization is incredible, and to experience the company from the inside. You know, it's just something to me that's still mind-boggling, because I've known Martin for an incredibly long time. I own several instruments and have owned several instruments. I play, and I always had this deep love for the company. But now to be actually part of it, that is very rewarding, and to work with all these incredible people, starting with Chris, family, the board, and the coworkers around the globe. It's just something that is that I truly enjoy, and I'm involved in everything end to end, which again is wonderful, because it's just so fascinating and exciting. What's most challenging? I think there's a near-term answer. The near-term answer simply is, how do we navigate through the current situation of COVID, and with that comes supply chain issues. With COVID have also come people-related issues, right? So if we want to hire, it's a little bit harder to hire. Keeping people is harder, because the great resignation or reshuffle, that is not a myth. That's actually happening, and I think it's happening everywhere. So no business is excluded from that. And so that is very near term, obviously, with Russia and Ukraine, which is very sad to see right now. There's also the additional challenge, how do we support and can be helpful in this situation? And we are also all over that. So that's near term. I think longer term, the challenge really is, how do we make sure that Martin, the brand, everything we do every day at Martin, truly reinforces what we stand for, and is fresh, right, and is relevant. And you may say, well, that should be pretty straightforward, but in reality, nothing is cut in stone, even for a 189-year-old company. And so, to me, it's, how do we move forward, not losing where we've come from, but we celebrate it and we embrace it. But at the same time, how do we make sure we continue to stay relevant, and we live that every day, everywhere, right? Including our dealers we work with, our suppliers, and that is a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a rewarding challenge as well, and I love it. That's what I've spent pretty much my entire career on prior to joining Martin. That's what I did for life. So to me, that's exciting.
I really, really want to ask you something. I hope it's not a rude question. I hope it's not too personal, but it's something on my mind, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
I'm really curious. Because I remember when this announcement was made a few years ago, and a lot of people, a lot of Martin fans joked, "Oh, I'll send my resume in." Right? Did Martin approach you, or did you apply for this position? If that's too personal, then I apologize. But I'll just
No.
Okay, thank you.
I actually found out about the position being open through a friend of mine. And at that time, I was in the process of looking for opportunities in music or the arts,
Hmm.
for profit, not for profit, because I spent my entire career, as I mentioned, on the business side, but outside of the music industry. But in parallel, I spent my entire life creating music, playing these
Hmm.
guitars, having a love, and over the last several years, I thought more and more, right, when I'm doing my business stuff, there's a whole part of me that is not really coming into the equation. And when I do my music stuff, I always felt, well, why not do that with, as work, right, or with more time spent. And so I was looking for opportunities. I reached
Hmm.
out to the search firm that was involved, and frankly, at the beginning, did not necessarily think that uh, that I would be kind of a viable candidate because I was coming from outside the industry. But through the conversations, it became very clear that it seemed to be a good fit for the company,
Hmm.
and it worked out. And I'm incredibly humbled that I was chosen. Um, but it was a process, and with each step, it seemed to make more and more sense that this actually could work out.
That's great. So you want to be more involved in music because you've been playing music, and this is ideal, right? Worked out perfectly. It's great.
Totally, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And how about your like your? Let's talk about the future of the industry. Do your children play the guitar? Are they musical?
So we forced all our children to learn the piano
Yeah, I was
as
forced to.
yeah, exactly, to have to have that foundation. They One of our four plays the guitar, another one ukulele, another one plays the violin. So we music is super
Hmm.
important in our family. They're certainly exposed enough to guitars that I hope they will pick it up at some point in
Hmm.
earnest.
I mean, it make a lot of sense, right? I'll just
Yes.
clarify. I wasn't forced to play. My grandfather got me lessons with a friend of his. I think over the years, when I think I saw Oasis on the TV, and I just
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
play the guitar, so that's where I made that switch. But the
Excellent.
piano
Yes,
is a great platform to start with for sure for children as well as the guitar.
totally. Yeah.
Um, Old says, do you have any other experimental processes? So, like the VTS you use on the Authentics guitars, like that. Are you still, as a company, working on those processes? I'm really into acoustic guitar pickups. I've actually reviewed about 20 acoustic guitar pickups on my
Yes.
channel, Thomas. So I
Yeah.
always wonder, like I know you work closely with LR Bags and Fishman and companies like that. I've always
Right.
wondered if you'll start looking at your own electronics maybe in the future. But are you working on things like pickups and VTS treatments and things like that, and to keep pushing those forward?
So, so I can't go into really specifics
Of
on
course,
this
yeah.
one, but what I would say is, in terms of innovative processes, sources of innovation, we're looking at everything that is related to guitars and strings,
Mm,
everything. Okay,
okay, good.
and so that relates to sound, that relates to the aesthetics, that clearly relates to electronics. Um, that relates to cases, right? And again, we're looking at guitars and strings holistically, and whatever makes up the instrument ultimately, we're always looking for ways to improve, and then we are also looking always for the question, would we benefit from doing something in the house versus partnering, right? And
Mm,
so I think that's going to continue. There's nothing that is um, off off the table when it comes
mm,
to that. Um, but at the same time, as you also know, we have very deep relationships with the partners we work with, and
yes.
I think they've been around for a long time. Our relationship has been around for a long time, and we also absolutely honor that. So if we have a partnership, uh, we have a lot of collaboration on some of these innovations, and we absolutely believe in that.
Mm. Great, great. Now, this next question might seem outrageous, But let's just bring it up as it
Let's
relates to
bring
what
it
we've been
on.
talking about. Everyone's going to kind of cough at this question, bring it. But look, Paul says, is there ever going to be a carbon fiber version of an HD28? Now, I know that sounds outrageous because of the Martin history and the woods and things, but we've been talking about sustainability and availability. And there was a guitar at one point, there was a short run of a guitar that did have a carbon fiber top, I believe. I know you've used carbon fiber in parts of the guitars,
Yes.
but is this off the table? Would you ever make a fully carbon fiber Martin? Is that like a no, or are you open to these things?
Well, maybe if there wasn't the word ever, because that's such a long time
I
frame.
know, I know.
um, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen 30 years from now, right? Or 20 years from now in some cases. We just don't know. I mean, it depends on what's available.
Right.
I think the philosophy of the company appears to have been to use the best available materials at any time in their history, right? And I think that's our philosophy, right? So it depends a lot on what's out there, and it also depends a lot on what's ultimately valuable to folks, right? And it might be easy to say, well, we'll always offer exotic woods, but if exotic use of exotic woods comes at a price point that makes our guitars only affordable for 1% of the people that currently play those guitars, it might not be a good answer for our consumers, and certainly wouldn't be a good answer for us. So I think
Mm.
this is going to be an evolution.
Yes.
But what specifically will happen, it's really hard. Um, so yeah, that's what I would say to that.
Yeah. Great answer. Yeah, I wasn't thinking you'd say, well, tomorrow we're going to switch over to carbon. That would not be. Even I know that's
E-
not a very smart move to make.
Exactly. And we do need something that resonates well, right, and can breathe. So whatever materials we have, there are lots of considerations that go into these materials, and certainly we wouldn't want to come up with something that makes the guitars actually worse. So
Mm.
if we introduce something, ideally that would be something to say it actually makes the guitars better.
Right. So the most important thing is that whatever you do next is an improvement in your opinion
Yeah,
of the product.
and it
Yeah.
connects to people who would like to play and be inspired and get joy out of it. Yeah, and meaning.
Mm. Mm. Rosanna says, and by the way, Rosanna and Lee, thank you for moderating today. I really appreciate you doing that. She says, what are the biggest issues you're facing with um, sustainability wise? What's the thing that's kind of hardest to get hold of right now? Is there something in particular that's in short supply for some reason?
Well, it actually changes, even for some of the exotic woods. It has changed. So right now, um, at least for a while, we were more challenged to get black ebony, but that has gone away, right? So we don't have that
Mm.
issue. So right now there is no real big issue we are concerned about. I mean, we have, and I think that's public knowledge, we have invested in what we call strategic reserves for the materials that are typically maybe more exposed to shortages. So short term, there are no kind of big issues from our perspective, other than supply disruptions that are temporary, or transportation delays. Longer term, I think you can look pretty much at all the exotic woods that are being used in our industry,
Mm.
and that is a big issue, right? What are we going to do about that? And even though it may be decades out in some cases, when it becomes a real issue, we have to start to think about these things now. So,
Mm.
so that's what I would say on that one.
So you're talking about like the like Brazilian rosewood, right? Eventually,
I
we
mean,
just
Brazilian
couldn't use it.
rosewood is already
Yeah.
a big issue right now. So, but we're not using a lot of Brazilian rosewood, right? So
Mm.
the company already have moved beyond that. Indian rosewood. I mean, there's a lot of demand on Indian rosewood, East Indian rosewood, and the supply is guaranteed probably for a few decades. But at some point, that question is going to stare us in the face, and we can't wait until we have that to be a big issue. We're thinking about these things now.
Yeah, and customers are so used to those woods, aren't they? Like the East Indian rosewood is such a staple for Martin and many other companies.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I used to work a lot in the high tech industry, and in the high tech industry, there was always this question of, well, how much do you need to listen to consumers to know what you will do, versus how much should you set the standard and do something that you think will be valuable, and then introduce it to consumers, because sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And I do think
Mm,
uh, the the trick is to have something in both areas, right? So by that I mean, I actually think there's a lot possible with guitars that a lot of people would resonate with. Maybe not if we introduce it right now, but over time. And I think some of the competitors, what they have done, you can find examples there. So I think it's introducing stuff over time, and also educating the market, but never, of course, lose touch with what consumers are really looking for. And I think the
mm,
nice thing now is the whole idea of sustainability is a big topic. I think for most generations, and so I think that will help to also experiment and do something that's new and fresh and different in the
mm.
future.
Bernard Smith, thank you for the super chat, and no question. But I saw earlier Bernard said that he went to the factory and met with Chris, and Chris came out and said hi, and he enjoyed the family kind of experience of going there. And I have to say, I totally agree with that as well.
Well,
Um, Here's a great question to kind of wrap things up. I know Summer Nam. Well, I know it's not Summer Nam. It's the NAMM show, but moved
yes,
to June. So, first question is: Are Martin going to be attending?
absolutely. We'll be there. Yep.
Okay, awesome. And Lisa said, "Will there be new models in 2022?" So again, I know a lot of these questions can't be answered, but are you planning on releasing more models? If you can tell us in for this year at the show.
So the answer is yes, right? So I think with the changes around NAMM, um, started last year with the virtual show.
Yeah.
We've shifted our way to think about product introductions a little bit, and yes, we are introducing models more in spurts, right? Focused
Mm,
throughout the year, versus having one big event where we introduce the models. So, Lisa, absolutely, there will be
mm.
more models in 2022.
This has come up a lot on different YouTube channels, and it's a bit of a blunt question, but I'll put it to you. Do you think NAMM is still relevant? Because it obviously costs a company so much money to fly the staff there, to to make the displays. It costs so much money to have the booth. I mean, the Martin booth must cost a lot of money just to have that. And just using that as an example, do you think that the NAMM show is still relevant and as important as it was before the pandemic, now that a lot of companies are pushing more onto social media and YouTube?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think it's certainly still very relevant to some people,
Mm,
and I know a lot of companies that are going to NAMM, because they see value in it. But I also know quite a few companies that have said, I'm not going to go to NAMM. Okay, and
mm,
so is it as relevant as it used to be? Um, I think the one thing that has clearly slightly changed is NAMM used to be an event that was a primary event for conducting business, and I think that's changing. Um, uh, I so I do think there is a need to reimagine what NAMM will be, right? To
Yes.
to make it as relevant and important as it used to be. I
Mm.
don't know what that would look like, but I don't think it's a secret that with some of the changes that you alluded to and trends, people just have different choices and options, and that I think, yeah, that necessitates that NAMM thinks a little bit about what is its value, right, that it provides, and to whom. Um, and so we'll see what happens there, but we'll be
Yeah.
there, and we look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, Chris Martin's had. I mean, he was the chairman of NAMM,
Chairman
right?
of, yes, exactly.
So I guess if any company is going to be there, it would definitely be Martin for that reason as
Yes.
well. I guess I'm really talking about other companies, especially like smaller companies that are spending money on that. As we know now, a lot of companies have built up like YouTube studios and doing a lot of
Yeah.
promotion
Yeah.
online. That's a shift in the industry, right? Where everything moved online, including releases and promotion and things like that.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. And then for the international community, it's also a little bit harder, right? To,
oh yeah,
especially
travel.
this year, to
Yeah.
make it to NAM. Yep.
Yeah, I personally love going, but I love going as someone that makes YouTube videos and also meets and connects with the companies and the brands. For me, it's a
Yes.
personal thing, but of course, that's not really the reason for the reason for NAM originally was to take orders with like Guitar Center and place the orders for the year and Sweetwater and things like that. So it's a
Exactly.
different. I come from a different approach to that. All right, I've got two more questions for you, Thomas. Then we're gonna have to wrap
Okay.
things up. These are
Great.
great questions. So again, thanks to everyone for your questions today and for your time. I really appreciate it. If you're new here, please do subscribe and ring the bell. I'd really appreciate it. So the next question is, with your technical background, how much are you having to draw on your knowledge to shift Martin into the future? Um, Also asked as, will AI start building guitars completely? I mean, the whole Martin thing is that they're handmade, right?
Yes.
So what do you think about with your technical background, your tech background, that will happen with that?
So I would say I'll answer the second question first. The answer is not at Martin. So that's for sure.
Mm,
Uh, as it relates to the first question, I think there is no question that technology is playing a more pervasive role. But also interestingly, for me coming into Martin, I thought there was much less technology in Martin as there actually is, right? And I mean, you may think manufacturing, but for sure there's quite a bit of technology when we think about CNC machines and
mm,
robots and so on. But in connection with people, but there are a lot of other departments and areas that make up the business also. When we think about how we connect with consumers and the channels, there's a lot of technology already being used. So
mm.
I think technology usage will continue to increase. And for us, it's not to pick a technology and then think about, well, how do we conduct business with the technology? It's really, how do we conduct business, and how do we accomplish what we want to accomplish, and then figure out where can technology help us to do it more effectively or more efficiently, right? So it's not lead with technology, um, but certainly don't ignore technology as a
Right,
big option.
right. I like it. I love the fact you're using the Plek machine there on most of the guitar, not the Authentics, but
Exactly.
most of the other guitars you're using the Plek machine. And I read the other day that it's still operated by a human. It
Yep.
still takes skill to use it. You don't just put it in that comes out the oven. But
Yeah,
I
at
think it's
Martin
good.
Humans, people are involved across the entire process, right?
Yeah,
So there's no step that just is taken on by machines and then it moves just on to the next step. That's just not
yeah,
how we like to do it.
yeah. But like you said, you have to embrace technology as well because that can be a good thing too, right? It can.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, last question from Thomas Moore. And I was thinking this earlier, so you read my mind, Thomas Moore. Thank you. Who decides on the actual specs of the new models after you do the prototype? Do you sit around and vote on it, or do you have the final say? Great question.
Well, I think it depends a little bit on the model, first of all, right? I mean, there are certain models where you have a smaller change to the model in terms of the specs, um, and that's a different group of people that decides that versus, let's say, a brand new model like the SC13. That was actually truly a senior leadership decision to support that. Obviously, Chris is as the owner. He's going to be involved in any major decision, around changes. So working with me and the team. But yeah, it varies a little bit on the nature of the change.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you, Jim, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone being here. First of all, we've had loads of great questions. Lots of people in the chat and the community talking with each other. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
Thomas. Most of all, I appreciate your time. As a Martin fan, I've absolutely loved this, and I can't wait to see you. Hopefully, I might see you at NAMM or the factory sometime.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hang out again and see you. And open invitation to come on the show anytime. If you got some news there at Martin or want to share anything with us, I'll leave that door open. And
wonderful, Aaron. Thank you, and also thank you for everybody who jumped in and joined this session. Really appreciate it, and I always love to connect with people.
That's great,
and it's great. Yep,
thank
you.
That's awesome. If you're new here, please subscribe and ring the bell. I really would appreciate it. And I'm back next Monday with another guest, so do tune in next Monday as well. And I'll say bye, everyone. Have a great week. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, Thomas. I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Meet me at the station at midnight. Wear your high heels, your red dress, and your smile. You look just like this other girl I knew.